No one noticed the man on the plane, until the pilot triggered a shocking alert at 3 a.m. It was the dead of night, and the world below was asleep, but inside the cramped cabin of Flight 103, tension crackled like static in the air. The plane, a metal bird soaring through the dark, carried a secret. At the back, a man sat with his eyes closed, his face hidden in the shadows, but there was something unsettling about his presence. He didn't belong. Passengers chatted softly, unwittingly sharing the same space as this mystery, oblivious to the excitement brewing just beneath their level of awareness. As the cabin lights flickered for a moment, a strange hum began to fill the space, growing louder and vibrating through the seats. Passengers exchanged confused glances, unaware they were about to witness something they would never forget. And then silence. It wasn't just any kind of stillness, it felt weighty, like the moment before a storm. The kind of quiet that sends shivers down your spine, leaving a lump in your throat. Sitting at the cockpit, Captain Morgan stared intently at the instruments in front of him. The clock read 2:57 a.m. It was just another boring night flight, or so he thought. Suddenly, an alert blinked on the display, flashing a warning that turned his blood cold. Unidentified presence detected in cabin. Panic twisted his gut as he mentally scanned the occupants. Who was it? Was he imagining things? Fear coursed through him, that tight chest feeling told him to be alert, to act. This wasn't just a routine flight anymore. With shaky hands, he reached for the radio to notify the crew. Then, just as he was about to make the call, he dared a quick look through the cabin door. That man, he was still there, inexplicably calm, seemingly unfazed by the swirl of tension enveloping the flight. As the pilot's heart raced, the man's stillness felt wrong, like a predator waiting until the last second to strike. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Captain Morgan's heart raced as dread settled like a lead weight. Who was this guy, and what was he plotting? The plane swayed slightly, turbulence jolting the passengers, but their minds were on something far worse. The murmurs of confusion escalated into a crescendo of whispers, eyes darting nervously around the cabin. As the pilot tried to maintain his composure, every second felt like an eternity. Sweat dripped down his brow. And then, with a sudden jolt, alarms wailed through the cabin. The lights turned a blood red, illuminating the man's face. He finally opened his eyes, pitch black, devoid of emotion, a stark contrast to the chaos around him. The passengers jumped back, fear etched on their faces. They were trapped in a vessel miles above the ground with a specter. As the cockpit doors swung shut and the crew scrambled to respond to the emergency, all eyes turned to the man who stilled the terror, the figure who watched calmly amidst the panicked breath of their collective fear. What was he waiting for? What would happen next? The tension thickened in the air like fog, leaving everyone gasping for answers as uncertainty gripped their hearts. The alarm continued to shriek, a cacophony that shattered the fragile calm and pulled everyone into a spiral of dread. Heartbeats synchronized, booming like war drums, drowning out the panic-riddled gasps from passengers tethered to their seats by fear. The man at the back remained still, his face illuminated in the crimson light, his expression a cryptic mask that spoke of unspeakable intentions. From the cockpit, Captain Morgan slid back from his seat, his mind racing. "Get me the crew." He barked into the radio, the urgency evident in his tone. He needed allies. They needed to figure out who this intruder was. While time slipped through their fingers like sand, the flight attendants rushed in, their eyes wide with fear and confusion. "What's happening?" one shouted, cutting through the chaos. Their faces mirrored the panic spiraling through the cabin. A few passengers struggled against their seatbelts, desperate to escape, but they were helpless as the plane shook violently. Lock the doors. We can't let him get to the cockpit. Captain Morgan barely managed to keep his voice steady as he pointed towards the cabin. His mind raced with the implications of what might happen. The crew scrambled, pushing buttons, locking down the cockpit, sealing off any means of access to the heart of the plane. The man's piercing black eyes swallowed the light around him. "You're all so very frightened," he called, his voice smooth yet chilling, cutting through the frantic atmosphere like a knife. The sullen tranquility of his tone was unsettling against the backdrop of alarm bells and panicked cries. "That won't help you." Passengers froze, their breath caught in their throats. Was he taunting them? One woman gasped, clamping a hand over her mouth, while a man stood, shaking. "What do you want?" he yelled, his voice cracking with terror. The man's lips curled into a thin smile, revealing no warmth, only threat. "What I want, is to show you something." He shifted slightly, and in that moment of movement, the cabin felt like it was drawing itself in, a collective breath held in anticipation of something irreversible. Captain Morgan's heart pounded as he glanced toward the door. "Stay back!" he shouted protectively, but the man didn't move. Instead, he tilted his head, as if savoring the tension hanging thick in the air. Suddenly, the plane lurched, a violent shake that sent luggage tumbling from overhead compartments. Passengers screamed, the sound screaming against the shrill alarms. The lights flickered again, and the man's eyes glinted in the dimness. He stood slowly, purposefully, and the atmosphere shifted like a tide pulling back before a tsunami. "Everyone brace yourselves!" Morgan yelled, fear racing through him as he rushed towards his crew, adrenaline coursing his veins. He had to protect the passengers, but uncertainty clawed at his thoughts. Was this man just a harbinger of chaos, or did he represent something far worse? In that heartbeat of chaos, someone screamed, "He has something." A bomb. Gasps erupted in a wave that swallowed the cabin. The realization crashed over the moment like a wave, leaving a chill of pure terror streaking through every spine. Hands trembled, and the noise reached a deafening crescendo. As darkness swallowed the red lights, plunging them into a temporary abyss, the pilot locked eyes with the man in the back. There was a tenuous moment of silence, tension coiling tighter and tighter until it felt like everything would snap. What did he want with them? What fate awaited them high above the clouds? The true horror was just beginning. The darkness enveloped the cabin, an unbearable weight crushing down on everyone inside. The alarms blared on, but the shrieking sirens were muffled in the face of raw fear. It was a moment suspended in time, where nothing existed except dread and the looming specter of the man whose very presence twisted the air itself. Captain Morgan fought the urge to glance back at the man. Instead, he turned to his crew, urgency dripping from every word. "We need to establish contact with air traffic control. We're flying blind here." He could feel the sweat pooling at the base of his neck, his palms slick against the controls. The co-pilot, Jack, nodded sharply, his expression strained. "I'll handle the communication," he replied, fingers flying over the controls, desperately trying to push through the chaos. Every second felt like an eternity as he strained to reach the ground, to make someone aware of the nightmare unfolding above. In the cabin, confusion morphed into hysteria. A young mother clutched her child, her face pale with fear. "We're going to die," she cried, her voice cracking. "Somebody help us." Passengers started shouting, everyone desperate to escape the nightmare that unspooled around them. The man in the back remained calm, a stark contrast to the scene of utter panic. He leaned against the wall, watching with an unsettling detachment. Morgan's heart raced. "We must maintain control." He turned back to the cockpit, but something made him hesitate. The thought of that man creeping closer, closer. A chill ran through him. What is he waiting for? Suddenly, a dim light flickered back to life. For an instant, illumination wrapped around the cabin, revealing the wide-eyed faces twisting in various stages of terror. The man at the rear grinned wider now, wicked and knowing. "Isn't it beautiful?" he remarked, gesturing towards the illuminated exits. A chance to run if only you'd dare. What do you mean? A voice trembled from the crowd, barely pushing through the chaos. Why not have a taste of freedom? The man stepped forward, moving with a grace that stood in stark contrast to the mounting dread coiling through the cabin. Let us see who's willing to escape and who's willing to fight. The crew exchanged looks, panic cascading through them like an electric shock. Don't listen to him. Morgan suddenly shouted, his voice cutting through everything like a knife. We have to hold strong. This man wants to divide us. What if he's right? A voice piped up from the back, a tremor of uncertainty coloring the words. Maybe there's a way out. Stay put. Morgan barked, fear-motivated authority. Sweat dripped down his forehead, trailing along his brow. We cannot let him manipulate us. The flickering lights cast shadows that danced like specters across the cabin. Beneath the fear was confusion, and in the heart of that confusion lay a dangerous hope. What if the man's twisted games had a way out birthed within them? Would someone be desperate enough to take that leap into the unknown? In that pivotal moment, a collective breath was held. Tension crackled with electrifying potential, as if fate itself was poised to strike. It was a choice moment, one that could define their escape, or seal their fate. As the cabin grew impossibly still, the man's eyes glinted with dark expectation. He stepped closer, and something deep within the shadows of his grin suggested the unveiling of a deeper plight. You'll find it, if you dare to ask the right questions. What lay beyond his riddles, and would the terrified passengers have the courage to unravel them before it was too late? The atmosphere thickened, and all they could do was wait for the next move. But who would be the first to brave the unknown? Silence filled the cabin, an uneasy tension coiling around each passenger like a vice. Captain Morgan stood before the controls, his heart thundering in his chest. The man's presence felt monumental, an invisible hand tightening its grip on reality. Shadows flitted across the faces surrounding him, each reflecting the wavering threads of hope and despair. Listen closely. Morgan shouted, putting extra weight behind his words. We must stick together. Panic will only serve this man. If anyone has ideas, share them. Strength lies in unity. But the doubt hung heavy, a thick fog that smothered his clarity. Just behind him, Jack struggled on the radio, tied up in static with no sign of relief. Mayday! Mayday! This is Flight 327. We are. His voice broke off with a deadly crackle, drowned out by the sirens that screamed like banshees. Fear clawed at his throat, but he pressed on, sweat beading on his temples. The man in the back chuckled, the sound smooth, sinister. Oh, dear Captain, words alone won't save you. The clock is ticking. Morgan turned back to the cabin, desperate to diffuse the suffocating panic. Focus. We can survive this. But a hard swallow threatened to betray him. Eyes glazed with fear bore into him, each a mirror reflecting their shared terror. Suddenly, the mother grabbed at Morgan's jacket, her grip shaking. What do we do? Please. We need a plan. Trust me. He turned, just then noticing a small, blurred figure inching away from the group. A teenage boy in the far corner pressed himself against the wall, clearly contemplating an escape. Hey! Morgan called, trying to reach him through the chaos. Stay with us. You're safer here. But the boy looked up with wide eyes, fear contorting his face. What if there's a way out? What if I can? No! Yelled another passenger, a wiry man who clutched a briefcase like it was a lifeline. Don't give in to him. This is a trick. The man at the back chuckled again, a sinister sound that electrified the air. Tricks are just opportunities. Choose wisely, dear passengers. Freedom waits, but fear holds you captive. A small spark ignited in the cabin as one passenger, an older gentleman with hardened features, rose from his seat. He straightened, determination igniting in his eyes. Let us but see just how powerful this fear is. With each step towards the man, the tension ramped into a crescendo. "Show us. What do you want from us?" The man's grin widened, revealing a shadow of madness that danced in his eyes. "Ah, now we're talking. It is not what I want, dear passenger, it's what you're willing to sacrifice for your own truth." The passengers eyed one another, whispers brewing and twisting among them. Questions mounted. What was the truth? What would they give up for it? Would they dare confront this demon to discover their freedom, or was it but a mirage glistening faintly in the distance? "This man is not our enemy," began the gentleman. "He has shown us that we each hold our own keys." "We must know," interrupted Morgan, his voice rising with urgency. "We cannot engage in this madness. If we give in to fear, the flickering lights intensified, casting grotesque shadows that wrapped around them like serpents." The air buzzed with an electric tension, and Morgan sensed the delicate moment teetering on the brink. Suddenly, a loud alarm blared through the cramped space, an indisputable call to attention. Jack's frantic voice echoed. "Captain! We have a serious systems failure. The engines." All eyes turned towards the cockpit, terror morphing to confusion. The man's laughter rang out, cutting through the pandemonium. "Ah, dear passengers! It appears an unexpected twist awaits. Will you embrace the shadows, or shine a light on your darkest fears?" The cabin erupted in chaos as panic soared with the blaring alarm. The question now hung heavily in the air: what would they sacrifice to escape? But as they faced the impending doom, another thought lingered. Was this man merely the puppet master, or was he their savior in disguise? Outside the windows, the night was swallowing them up. With every moment, the darkness felt more alive, shuddering with anticipation. And somewhere within that inky black lay the truth, desperate to be uncovered. But would they have the fortitude to seize it? As the cabin quaked under a torrential twinge of fear and uncertainty, one thing was certain: their fate was spinning wildly, and any choice could lead them closer to salvation or to irreversible despair. In that charged atmosphere, every soul held its breath, waiting for the moment that would redefine them. But who among them would step forth and seek out the shadows, risking it all to find their way to the light? The cabin shook, a violent tremor that mirrored the chaos writhing in each passenger's mind. Captain Morgan forced himself to steady his breathing, fighting against rising panic. "Jack! Get those engines operational. We don't have much time." Jack's face was a mask of dread. "I'm trying, but the systems act like they're locked out." "I need..." His words were cut off by another violent jolt. Morgan grabbed the back of the co-pilot's chair to keep himself balanced, eyes darting around the cabin. "What do you mean locked out?" The urgency in Morgan's voice bordered on desperation. "There's someone in the system," Jack stammered, eyes wide. The man in the back laughed again, that chilling sound resonating through the disarray, filling every corner of the cabin with fear. "Oh, isn't this delightful? A dance on the edge of oblivion." His gaze swept over the passengers, enjoying the panic unfolding before him. Morgan gripped the controls tighter. "Enough of this. Everyone, listen," he bellowed. "We need to work together. We can't let him win. Think. There must be something we can do." The older gentleman stepped forward, defiance lighting his features. "We must confront him. He thrives on our fear. Only through understanding can we escape his grasp." A young woman, her hands trembling, voiced a fearful thought. "And what if our understanding leads us nowhere? What if he's right? What if the truth is just another illusion?" Morgan sensed the growing unrest. He scanned the cabin, seeing the doubt etched into faces once filled with determination. This is what he wants. United we stand. But before he could finish, a shriek pierced the air, sharp and jarring. The teenage boy who had been contemplating an escape collapsed to the floor, clutching his head. It's in my mind," he gasped, tears streaming down his cheeks. Fear trickled through the cabin. Morgan rushed to the boy, kneeling beside him. What do you mean? The whispers. It's in the shadows. I can see it. He trembled, eyes darting as if searching for an unseen enemy. Focus! Cried Morgan, gripping the boy's shoulders. Fight it. You're stronger than this. Oh, it's all lies. The boy screamed, his voice cracking. We're trapped. He has taken us. No. Shouted the wiry man with the briefcase, snapping at the boy. It's a trap. Don't let it take you. The man at the back's grin widened, his eyes shimmering like shards of ice. Such a delicious cacophony of despair. Keep fighting, dear ones. But no, each denial brings you closer to your truth, or your end. Outside, the roaring wind matched their claustrophobia, sending chills through the cabin. Morgan met the gazes of those around him, searching for signs of a glimmering resolve. We each hold pieces of what's happening. Share your thoughts. We need each other now more than ever. Suddenly, Jack's voice rang out, cutting through the din. I found something inside the system. There's a manual override, but it's deep within. If we power it down, we could reset everything. Hope flickered momentarily. Then what are you waiting for? Morgan urged, feeling the weight of their collective breaths in the silence that followed. Go. Now. We don't have time. Jack bolted toward the cockpit, determination igniting his steps. The cabin's atmosphere felt thick, as if charged with unseen energy. As he reached the control panel, a pulse of red light surged through the cabin, making everyone flinch. No. The man called from the back, his sinister tone wrapping around them like barbed wire. What you see is merely an illusion. A reset? That's not your solution. Your minds are the playground. Play with me. Panic surged as the lights flickered again. Morgan turned, feeling an insidious chill crawling up his spine. Focus. Stay together. Connect. But the shadow of the man loomed larger as the lights dimmed further, igniting screams of terror. In the whirlwind, one passenger shouted defiantly, "Let us end this. Together." And just like that, as seconds stretched into an eternity, the voices crescendoed, a challenge thrown into the abyss. Would they show courage, or let fear consume them entirely? Far from the cacophony, the echoes of desperation began to morph into something undeniable. They were not just passengers anymore, they were warriors fighting against an unseen enemy willing to consume their souls, but who would emerge victorious, and at what cost? The coil of tension tightened, each heartbeat marking a countdown to an inevitable reckoning. A moment slipped away as a decision loomed on the horizon. The clock was ticking down. The dim cabin was a battlefield of wills, chaos swirling around every corner. Jack's fingers flew over the control panel, his breath coming in quick, shallow gasps. I can almost reach it. He exclaimed, eyes darting to the readouts, the frantic glow of warning lights reflecting his escalating dread. Meanwhile, the man in the back, that unsettling specter of darkness, leaned forward, his tone dipped in honeyed malice. Ah, Jack, can you feel it? The closer you get to the truth, the closer you come to the end. His laughter echoed, slicing through the air like a serrated blade. Shut up. Morgan flared, turning his fierce gaze toward the taunter. You've woven fear into this plane. But we will not break. He turned back to the passengers. Everyone. We need to channel our strength. We can fight him together. As if spurred by Morgan's words, several passengers stood, their faces a mixture of resolve and terror. The older gentleman stepped forward again. We face not just him, but the fears within us. Come on. Share your deepest worries. Acknowledge them and strip him of his power. The young woman, trembling still, shouted, I fear I'm not strong enough. What if we lose? What if no? Morgan interrupted. You must confront that fear. It can't rule us. The boy on the floor suddenly screamed again. The visions they twist reality. I can't separate them from what's real. His eyes rolled back, frantic as if battling unseen forces. Stay with me, Morgan urged, crouching low beside him. What do you see? In that moment, the lights flickered violently, plunging the cabin into a momentary abyss before erupting back to a harrowing brightness. The passengers gasped, many covering their ears against the shrieking sounds that seemed to seep from the walls. The man in the back clapped mockingly. Ah, the sweet sound of despair. Jack's voice trembled as he shouted above the din, I'm almost there. Just a few more seconds. But his hands hesitated as another jolt slammed through the plane. Morgan felt an ice-cold grip on his heart. Stay strong, Jack. You can do this. He could feel the atmosphere thickening with dread as shadows began dancing at the edges of the cabin. The older gentleman raised his hands, calling everyone to join him as he began to chant a calming mantra, drawing the others into a rhythm that wove through the chaos. They echoed his words, voices mingling, shaping an anthem of unity against the abyss that threatened to consume them, yet the man at the back mocked their efforts, his eyes gleaming with a maniacal glint. Pathetic. Your resolve is nothing but a candle against the storm. In that moment, Jack's fingers struck the final keys. The cabin erupted in blaring alarms as the engine sputtered, the cabin vibrating with a wave of panic. It's done. He yelled, eyes brimming with hope. We might just, but then, another violent tremor rocked the cabin. A shadow detached itself from the back, gliding forward with a malevolent grace. The figure was all darkness, eyes burning bright as they locked onto Morgan. Ah yes, the grand puppeteer. But have you ever wondered, Captain, who truly controls this show? The voice slithered into Morgan's ears, thick with venomous glee. Suddenly, the cabin fell silent. The passengers froze, hearts hammering in their chests. They felt it a palpable, icy pressure closing in on them. Fear clawed at every throat as they turned to Morgan, seeking guidance. The air hung heavy, as if the world outside the cabin had ceased to exist. Everyone, look within. You must confront your fears. All of you now. But before another sound could escape their lips, the darkness loomed closer, and the lights flickered out one more time, enveloping them in a suffocating blackness. What lay beyond that void? What unseen terror awaited them in the silence? Time stretched thin as the heartbeats quickened, rendering every moment a fight against despair. Would they rise, or would this be their final descent? The darkness swallowed them whole, a thick blanket that stifled breath and warmth. In that moment, the cabin wasn't just a space suspended in the sky, it morphed into a living entity, pulsing with fear and anticipation. Morgan's heart raced in sync with the panic that echoed around him. Every passenger was held hostage by their dread, each breath laced with the metallic taste of terror. Jack! Morgan finally yelled, the sound scraping against the silence. We need light. But Jack, caught in a web of frantic worry, was still at the control panel. His hands trembled as he fought against the chaos swirling inside him. I'm trying. He replied, the quiver of his voice revealing the gravelly edges of fear. The unwanted specter wove closer, its malevolent eyes capturing more than just light. They seemed to siphon hope itself, drawing strength from the growing despair. A low rumble filled the cabin, a sound like distant thunder, echoing through the hollow of their hearts. Then came a spark, a flicker followed by a surge of lights, flickering wildly as if battling against the oppressive shadows. It wasn't the flooding brightness they craved, but instead, chaotic strokes that created flickering images against the walls of their anxiety. Look! The older gentleman shouted, pointing to the shifting shadows casting figures of their worst fears. Morgan pressed forward, his voice firm, do not let it take you. They're illusions. Stand together. Yet even as he spoke, uncertainty clawed at his own insides. The man in the back grinned, his form momentarily illuminated by the strobe of panic. United you stand, but divided within. Can you feel the mounting dread? You cannot escape yourselves. The passengers paused, their fears manifesting in grotesque forms around them, images of lost loved ones, broken promises, and dreams turned to ash. Morgan steeled himself, grounding his resolve. He focused on the boy on the ground, crumpled yet resolute. "Hold on to me. We'll escape this together." Jack finally breached the barrier of terror long enough to call out, "I think I can reroute the power. I need you all to believe. Believe in the light." A ripple surged through the gathered souls, each clinging to their slivers of hope, reaching out for strength. Even in the face of death, they were a united front against the encroaching darkness, but the haunting laughter of the figure cut through their resolve. "Oh, how touching. You think your belief will shield you? What of the demons that whisper in your minds? The shadows that dance inside your very souls?" Suddenly, the interior of the plane lurched violently, dislodging Morgan from his determination momentarily. The lights burst fully on, blinding in their clarity, the darkness screeching in protest. Disoriented, Morgan stared into the eyes of the looming figure. Were those eyes familiar? Something clawed at his memory, the insignia on the man's coat, a figure straight from a haunting past. "Tell me," Morgan breathed, his heart pounding harder, "what do you truly want?" "No, Captain," the man replied, as a terrible smile spread across his features. "My wish is simple. I want you to see everything." With those words, the air thickened, and a searing pain surged through Morgan's chest, igniting a kaleidoscope of memories, fears, and the truth he dreaded to confront. As the cabin swirled with visions, Morgan felt the blood surge and the pressure build. He realized with a morbid sense of clarity, was this the moment where they either triumphed or tumbled into unfathomable depths? A hand grasped Morgan's shoulder, snapping him back. The boy, struggling, fighting against his fears. Was this their moment of resilience, or was this merely the start of a more harrowing descent into madness? What was it they truly had to confront, and who would collapse under the weight of their own shadows? Outside, thunder rumbled as if warning them of the storm ahead. How would they rise above the swirling darkness? And could the truth set them free, or was it destined to shatter everything they held dear? In that waning moment, the haunting laughter lingered like a ghost, mocking their fight against fate and leaving a chilling question firmly gripped in their minds: what would happen when the boundaries between light and darkness finally broke? The swirling chaos stilled for just a heartbeat, an exhale caught in the weight of uncertainty. Morgan felt the pressure tighten around him, the boy beside him clutching his arm with white-knuckle fervor. They were all teetering on the brink, suspended between what was and what could be. "Jack!" Morgan shouted again, raw urgency sharpening his tone. "You have to focus. What do you need?" The cockpit lights flickered, casting fleeting shadows over Jack's face, a mask of desperation. "If I can just stabilize the power circuit," he trailed off, eyes darting between the flickering screens, the buzzing alarms morphing his thoughts into a cacophony. Yet, the laughter returned, echoing against the metal walls with an eerie resonance that pierced through the frantic attempts at clarity. "The truth, dear soul, can be a harmful thing. Would you rather live in ignorance than face the visceral horror of your reality?" The figure loomed closer, its presence a tangled mass of darkness, a chilling contrast to the blinding light. Morgan pressed against the boy, willing strength through their shared bond. "We can beat this. Fear can't win if we hold on to hope." But doubt twisted like a knife in his gut. Every face around him reflected the war within, a struggle between despair and resilience. The elderly man wept silently, while a couple held each other tightly, fear etched across their features. The mere act of existence felt burdensome, the past they carried like lead weights in their memories. As he looked around, something clicked. Memories, the joy, the pain flooded Morgan's mind. He realized the shadows weren't just outside, they were mirrored in the frightened eyes of every passenger, their deepest fears now laid bare in the dark. The shadows were feeding off their dread, growing bolder and more grotesque. "Focus!" Morgan cried, his voice cutting through the haunting laughter. "You all have something worth fighting for. Remember. Hold on to the people you love. The dreams you still want. An electric charge pulsed through the cabin, a flicker of rebellion igniting in the atmosphere. Jack, with shaky fingers, began to tap erratically on the control panel. I think I'm getting somewhere. Just stay together. The darkness recoiled momentarily, the figure's grin faltering. Morgan pressed on. We are not your playthings. We're not pawns in your nightmare. Such spirit, the figure sneered. But you're merely delaying the inevitable. This is just the beginning. As those words left its lips, shadows morphed into a swirling tempest. The atmosphere thickened, it felt like a weight pressing down, squeezing the room, suffocating hope. A scream ripped from the back of the cabin, momentarily rallying everyone's attention. A young woman pointed, her voice quivering. Look! Morgan turned to see what had terrified her. The walls around them split with jagged lines, splintering their sanctuary, revealing the void beyond. A chilling wind poured through, chilling his skin, and he caught sight of images swirling into view, his childhood home, the faces of long-lost friends, feelings of betrayal and trust fractured beneath the storm. Face your fears or they will consume you, the figure whispered, its voice reverberating through the air like an ominous lullaby. In response, a collective surge of wills coalesced. People grasped hands, formed a line, a thin thread connecting their disparate hearts. They breathed in unison, a trembling yet earnest resonance. We believe. They cried, a defiant chorus against the impending doom. Jack's hands moved deftly, sweat glistening on his brow as he called out, hold tight. Trust in each other. I'm almost there. But just as the light began to stabilize, the figure erupted into laughter, a sound so menacing it made the cabin quiver. You have no idea what's coming. You think you can control the light? Let us see how well you handle the fire. With that, the cabin erupted in chaos, a violent eruption of lights and shadows. Faces blurred, screams drowned in a maelstrom of terror, and Morgan felt himself being pulled apart, every thread of hope stretching to its limit. Suddenly, a rush of cold swept through, and he caught sight of the boy next to him, his eyes wide, tears streaming, as the boy's form flickered like a dying flame in that virulent darkness. Was it too late to save him? The lights flickered one last time before plunging them back into darkness. Morgan's pulse raced as he grabbed hold of the boy, determined not to let go as the storm threatened to tear them apart. What lay beyond this nightmare? A truth that could save them or final despair? What awaited them on the other side of this vicious darkness? Would they emerge whole, or would the fire consume them all? The darkness enveloped them like a suffocating blanket. Morgan could barely breathe as reality unraveled around him. A frantic carousel of thoughts invaded his mind, caught in a whirlwind of chaos. Time blurred, it felt like an eternity had passed since the lights last flickered. Hang on! He shouted, squeezing the boy's arm tighter, feeling the trembling beneath his touch. The boy's gaze was frantic, darting about as if searching for an escape that wasn't there. A blaring siren pierced the gloom, vibrating through the metal hull. Jack's frantic fingers worked the controls, but the eerie laughter drowned out any sense of direction. I can't, it's too. His voice cracked, panic overflowing. Suddenly, the voice loomed, tangible yet far away. What's happening is no accident. You brought this upon yourselves. It slithered through the air, oozing condescension like venom. With every syllable, shadows twisted into grotesque shapes, clawing at their sanity. Morgan fought against mounting dread. He had to keep it together. Jack, don't give up. We're strong together. Remember what we are fighting for. A flash of light erupted, explosive brilliance pierced the void. Inside that moment, Morgan glimpsed everything he'd fought for. Faces of his loved ones pulsated in the light, every laugh drifted to him like a fleeting whisper. But in the next breath, darkness swallowed it whole, leaving him wanting more. Shadows thrive on despair, the figure hissed, its form shifting uncomfortably, as if alive with malignant intent. This is only the beginning. You will lose what matters most, one by one. No. Morgan cried. You don't own us. He felt the collective strength of the people around him. They were not just passengers, they were warriors in their own right, bonded by their fears yet diminished no longer. A sudden shudder emerged from the cockpit. Jack slammed a fist against the control panel. I need one more shot. We need to break free. Desperation fueled his fire, igniting a flicker of hope. Now, Morgan urged. Everyone. Focus. Think of your dreams. The things you desire most, hold on to them. Hands squeezed tighter, breaths came heavier. The cabin started to fluctuate like the calm before a storm. They became a single entity, straining against the confines of despair, forcing reality to bend to their will. Rebellion will not save you. The figure spat, frustration thickening its voice. Shadows clawed and shrieked, reaching into the space between heartbeats trying to unravel their connection. Jack's fingers flew over the panel. Just a few more seconds. Just stay with me. A surge of collective determination flowed through them, charging the air with something electric and raw. Fear twisted to exhilaration. It felt like the moment before a thunderstorm, heavy, pregnant with the power to shift everything. But then everything shifted. The walls twitched violently, as if alive, ripping apart as jagged cracks splintered their sanctuary. White-hot flames flickered just beyond, darkness fighting against light, the struggle itself materializing into horrific shapes. Morgan caught the boy beside him. Stay close. Please. Don't let this happen. The boy cried, his voice a fragile thread in the fabric of chaos. Together. We can. A groan echoed, a physical wrench of the very structure they occupied. The figure's laughter returned, wrapping around them like a noxious fog. Welcome to the agonizing choice. Reality or oblivion? In that instant, everything hung suspended. The air grew thick with the weight of fear, and Morgan felt it coil around him, suffocating, relentless. But his heart raced with anger and love, pushing back against the hatred that threatened to consume them. Mayday! Mayday! Blared the cockpit once more as Jack pounded the panel with urgency. We're losing control. If we don't fight back now. Someone, give me a sign. And just then, the air filled with static, a voice piercing through the din, a new voice unlike the dark one encroaching on their reality. Help is on the way. Stay strong. A flicker of hope ignited amid the chaos, a harbinger of strength in their darkest hour. But would it be enough? As silhouettes danced on the walls, laughter and screams merging in a symphony of dread, an even more ominous shadow crept forward, closing in on their unified bond. Who was this new voice? Could they truly count on help, or was it just another deception? The cabin trembled violently, and with that surge of movement came a deafening crash as the barriers between worlds began to fracture even further. What lay ahead? Would their united spirit hold against the oncoming tidal wave of shadows, or would they falter when it mattered most? The darkness clung to the cabin like a thick fog, wrapping around every passenger, suffocating hope with a chilling grip. But within that haunting void, something began to shift. Morgan felt it, the fire igniting among those around him. They were not just victims caught in a nightmare, they were warriors rising from despair, united against the sinister figure who thrived on their fears. Focus! Morgan shouted, willing every soul to grasp onto the flickers of hope. Remember your dreams. Think of why you're here, who you love. It was a call to arms, a reminder of what mattered most, the weight of their shared stories pressing against the malignant shadows. A low growl of frustration erupted from the specter at the back. You cannot fight what is in your nature. You're all rats in a cage, bound by your own limitations. But his words faltered as he watched the glimmering resolve grow within the cabin. Jack! How close are you? Morgan urged, feeling the pulsing energy of their growing connection as he clasped the boy's shoulder, their shared determination forging a bond that felt unbreakable. I'm almost there. Jack's fingers danced across the panel, frantic but focused. Keep holding on. The culmination of their fears morphed into visible specters around them, haunting images of regret and loss, but with each breath and united heartbeat, their phantom fears began to dissipate, unraveling against the strength of their communal spirit. "Now!" Morgan yelled, rallying everyone. "Join in. We know who we are." Voices lifted, a chorus of declarations rising against the noise, the fragility of despair juxtaposed with their fighting spirit. "We are not alone." With every declaration, light pulsed brighter, illuminating the cabin, illuminating them, a beacon against the blackness. Shadows thinned, their hold faltering as the figure's grin twisted from confident to frenzied. "No. You can't." "Yes, we can," Morgan shouted, fueled by the power of their connection. "You may thrive on our fears, but we define our own ways forward." The walls reverberated with his shout, an echo of empowerment reverberating through the cabin, and then it happened. The cabin erupted. Jack slammed his fist down one last time. A surge of energy shot through the controls, igniting the cockpit into beams of light, sweeping power cascading back through the dilapidated systems. The alarms whined in protest, but the lights shone brighter than before, radiating warmth against the bitter cold of despair. The shadows flashed, flickering like dying embers cast into the night. The towering figure recoiled, its laughter turning from sinister to anguished as the room gleamed with resilience. "This isn't over." It screamed, the darkness around them writhing in fury, twisting as the vacuum of their love pressed against it. But the passengers stood firm, hands clasped, determination flooding through their veins. "We are greater than fear," they shouted, melding their cries into one powerful declaration that cut through the very core of the night. In that single heartbeat, as the wavering light burst forth, Morgan felt something shift deep within him. The pain, the insecurities, it didn't matter anymore. They surged ahead with renewed strength, the darkness waning before the illuminating power of connection and shared life. With one final push, light enveloped the cabin, forcing away what remained of the shrouded figure. And then, silence enveloping, profound. Searing heat radiated through the cabin, as tendrils of warmth caressed their features. The flickers of light revealed them all, breathing, alive. They broke the silence together, laughter melding with tears, joy swelling through them like a rising tide. Morgan's heart quickened, a swell of relief flooding over him as he turned to the boy beside him. "Are you okay?" The boy blinked up, wide-eyed but unshaken. I think I am," he stammered, smiling faintly. The crew scuttled in, faces etched with shock and relief, eyes glinting with disbelief. Is it over?" Jack whispered, vulnerability resting in his words. "Yes," Morgan replied, voice steady, "it is." The cabin was alive again with air, with warmth, with presence. They were no longer just passengers, they had transcended the plane, the fear, rising up together over shadows etched into a new tapestry of hope. As they touched down, the night air bracing against their cheeks, the liberation they felt unfurled in waves. They were not shaped by the haunting specter, but by the ties they forged through fear, transformed into a unified spirit of love and life. They descended the stairs from the plane, burdened no longer, laughter ringing bright against the still night sky. They exchanged uncertain glances and wide smiles, they were free. Each life, each story they carried shone brightly in the newfound freedom of dawn. No longer trapped in shadows, they embraced what lay ahead, the promise of unity, resilience, and hope. As they would move forward, spreading their truths, their hearts echoed a reminder that together they could always rise above any darkness. Now it's your turn, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss another exclusive story, we have so much more coming. Smash that like button now, feed the algorithm, and let us know you're here. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion. Let us keep this amazing community growing together.